Hey guys, Tommy Carrigan here with Tommy Untamed. Thanks for tuning in. We got an awesome guest today. You're going to enjoy it. I mean, your book, Lucifer's Banker, it's in the description. I told you I re-listened to it just because it had been so long, and man, I legitimately was as I was just telling you, it's still a hoot. It's like it's a blast. It is a blast, and I just appreciate it because it's honest. And the entire thing is like, who doesn't want money? Like there's no faux, and I walked in there and I was appalled. It's the same. I'm 35, and I think what you were making in your 20s at some point, you're talking about the late 80s making 40,000 a year. I'm making less than that on the podcast in 2025. So like, I see that, and then I see like your salary going up, and I'm like, I kind of identified with it, not in terms of salary, but making connections. And as it grows, and you start to get, for lack of a better word, you start to get your swagger, a little more confidence, and like, yeah, who wouldn't pursue it? But then you get to a point where it becomes clear the kind of whole it's a pit of vipers and there's no honor amongst thieves. And then you get royally by the US government. And then through the end, I mean, if that's not proof of God and just karma and getting the biggest ever whistleblower IRS reward in US history, it is. This is the best compliment I can give it. If it was a movie, it'd suck because they'd be like, that's gay. That doesn't happen. Like that's how I look. It's like that's how it looks. It's like Patriots versus Falcons coming like that. Yeah, like if that was a movie, you'd be like, oh, that you're down 25 points in the fourth quarter. Off.
Yeah,
Your
can't
book
happen.
is that. Is if it was a movie, it would suck, but it's your life. So everybody, please go in this. I cannot emphasize it enough. Please grab the book. It's a fun read. But yeah, anything I've missed in that introduction.
Well, there's so much to it. It's many tentacles, as we say. When you really look at banking in general, you can look at all these other auction rate securities and LIBOR fixing and foreign exchange and manipulation and all these different groups within banks that were playing footloose and fancy free with other people's money predominantly, whether it was the firm's money or big clients' money or institutional clients and so forth. What I saw was this was really, I don't want to say mom and pop because that's not true. It's wealthy millionaires and billionaires that were rich enough to be a millionaire or billionaire in the US to put money overseas in Switzerland and have the testicular fortitude to do it. To think like, okay, you're a millionaire. You're in, let's just say, North Carolina. Why do you feel compelled to put 20 million bucks in Switzerland? Now, you want to hide it from the IRS? I can understand that. You want to hide it from a wife who might be your ex-wife? I understand it. And you might be on a second or third marriage. Or you have a business partner you don't trust and you're thinking, well, maybe I really need to have this nest egg just for that rainy day. So I get it. And if you really go back in time and think about what Swiss bank secrecy was, now that it's extinct, thanks to me, is like attorney-client privilege, medical privilege, clergy privilege, and then this was banking privilege. So the problem was after World War II, once it was instituted after the Third Reich came to power, meaning the Third Reich came to power and they said, if you move any pfennig out of Germany, you could be shot. And people are like, oh, what the hell is that? Switzerland countered with Article 47 in the Swiss Constitution that said, we will never give up anyone's name if you bring money and put it in our banks. So it was a pretty much FU to the Germans, even though they're still playing, backdoor games with those guys. So they were taking anyone's money that came in, but yet they wouldn't disclose it. But what happened was then this thing got abused. It got abused with after World War II, globalization. Then you had nefarious acts coming in, whether it was insider trading, bribery, extortion, just all kinds of drugs, prostitution, human trafficking, and so on and so forth. So it was a license to morph into something much bigger. And really that's what Swiss bank secrecy did. Because as we see today, everybody, oh geez, I have a company in Delaware, I don't have to declare it. Well, is that really the right way to go, that we hide everything? Or is it bad that Big Brother's on top of us 24/7? There's got to be some middle ground there. So, in a sort of long about answer to your question, you got to look at the premise of where we were, where it evolved from, which was the Third Reich coming to power. Swiss bank secrecy was created. The Swiss were handling money hundreds of years before it, but Swiss bank secrecy came in 1934. So now we start to get into this whole thing of, oh, it's a political stable country. Oh, it's an economically stable country. Oh, it's not part of the EU. Oh, it's never been successfully invaded. And people start to think, what better place in the world to hide my money? Panama, no. Gibraltar, no. But people still did it for a variety of reasons because the risk appetite they took was like, hey, rather than paying tax, I'd rather hide my money. So, and people could do their business, whether it was a nefarious business, from that location because they condoned it. So I think really what comes down to this in my book is it was the realization of what Switzerland meant in the whole complex of offshore banking. And everyone followed their lead. They were the leader, and everyone followed behind them.
It seems to just, I guess, have more of a mature take on it in the sense of like, you know, yeah, when you're a kid, you go, he's cheating. And as you grow up, you go, no, cheating's part of the game if you get away from it. It's not, I guess it's not honorable, but if you have some undetectable, human growth hormone, yeah, you're going to use that in the NFL where inches matter. Now, the risk is you'll get found out, kicked out, title stripped. But whether we like it or not, cheating is part of the game. It's not honorable, but it's part of it. And so to have that, I don't know, just barely scraping a mature view of things, you can't be, not you, but you can't be shocked when something like this exists. It's, I can't believe they're sending narco subs of cocaine. It's like, well, South America isn't just doing that for shits and giggles. There are buyers. Amazon doesn't have the nuts to ship me toilet paper. I bought it. Like, and you can't go. Prohibition didn't work. You can't go full teetotaler, and obviously, all the morality and whatever. Someone's going to supply it because there's a market, and if the demand is so great and the profit is so large, yeah, you're going to have entire organizations that grow up and to the point where they have their own navy and delivering it. Like you do have to be an adult and go, yeah, people are going to do coke. They want to drink. They want to whatever. And the rational thing would be to say, that's never going to go away. How can we regulate it? How can we market it? You can tax it, blah, blah, blah. You have to have that view on why wouldn't this arise in a world of Homo sapiens in
100%.
whatever 10,000 BC till now, agricultural revolution and now, from hiding grain to gold, why wouldn't that arise?
Well, I think the other thing, your point is, I concur with everything you said there because there's guys and girls, men and women, still in jail today for selling marijuana.
Yeah.
But yet now it's so cool to smoke, and because the government can control it and tax it, that's all they give a shit about. So let's be honest. If they can't control it or tax it, they're pissed off. Look at crypto, same thing. That's why they got all pissed off because, oh my gosh, all these really bad guys are dealing in crypto and doing this and that. Now, I'm not a big fan of crypto. I just don't deal in it. It's just not my business. But a lot of people do. A lot of people lose money. A lot of people make money. Fine. But if the U.S. government can't control it and tax it, then they'll attack it. And that's my point. I was just in Washington and Boston about 2 weeks ago. And I mean, you walk outside and it's just, I'm not a smoker of pot. I could care less if you want to smoke pot, smoke hash, do whatever you want. It's your own life. But in public, now you might say cigarettes in public was so bad and everyone went ballistic, right? Remember, you can't smoke on planes, you can't smoke in restaurants, you can't. Okay, I get it, secondhand smoke, this and that. Well, I go outside and everyone's smoking hash or pot or whatever, and it's everywhere. The smell, the stench.
Yeah.
What if I was with my grandfather? What if I had a baby in a stroller or whatever? Really?
Yeah.
So I'm not buying the argument that it's like cigarettes. You can't. I mean, I really don't care if people smoke. You can do whatever you like to do, whether it's medicinal or rec. But it goes to the heart of what you just said: is if it's a business and the government can get in it, they'll get in it. And for years and years and years, when it was prohibition and all this kind of thing, they always had a slant. And the slant was, oh, well, we were bad for a long time, put people in jail, but it's now okay. Well, think, and it's not the distance there isn't that great between when they were prosecuting people who are still in jail, and now they're reaping the benefits from it. So it's quite
It it
popular.
it does seem to be like a societal fluid reaching level in that if you go outright banning it, well, number one, people are going to make it, from speakeasies and bathtub gin. But then you also, it's like, well, who supplies that demand? Well, you got guys like, well, it's the same idea of like, if we, why don't we just ban guns? Well, the only people who are going to hold on to them are the ones who didn't give a fuck about being a criminal in the first place. So
Precisely.
who do you think arises? Al Capone and the boys. Like, they're not Boy Scouts on they're willing, what's Valentine's Day Massacre? A bunch of Tommy guns. Like, hey, that's who you're f***ing with, and you're creating that thing now. And then it gets hairier when you look, what was it, Web of Lies by, or Dark Alliance by Gary Webb, the whistleblower who talked about the cocaine flowing into to LA under the CIA, not under the CIA's nose, on from the CIA to fund the Contras. Well, and that's another aspect. It's like, okay, so you either create an Al Capone, now you have a domestic, really what it is just another power source that is going up against government power source, just in its most naked form is power versus power. If you look at the drugs coming across the border, you'd say you're creating these cartels, and then you can kind of go one step further in the iteration and go, well, what if you enforce its illegality domestically? So that it has to arise illegally internationally, and then you can skim off a portion of because you get your boys down at Border Patrol or DHS to look the other way. So now instead of taxing it and whatever, making 5% profit annually, now you're stepping on, I don't know, a brick of Coke 10 times and you're making like not exaggerate like $45,000 or 45,000% profit.
Profit.
It's gonna seek a level, and I hate to kind of secede to that idea, but I think you have to find like the least damaging level. And to tie it back to banking, if you tax everyone and take shit out of people's pockets and give it to people who don't work, guess what? Smart, resourceful people who are smart enough to get into grad school and smart enough to build businesses, they're also going to figure out about Swiss banking. They're very good at solving puzzles, be it their homework or how to evade the IRS. So like you're taking these like go-getter alphas and being like, and we're taking your money. No, you're fucking not. No, you're not. And so the flip side is when it gets so cancerous and bloated, it's a house of cards, and you were there when it started to seemingly come down on itself. I don't know where I was going at that point. Finding a level somewhere, you got to find a level.
Well, yeah, and you're right. That level, it's across the board. So, like as you say, I now spend a lot of my time here in Italy, where I am right now, and when you charge people or tax them 60%, think about that. Let's say you make 100 grand for the sake of argument, and 60 grand goes right out the window. You're thinking to yourself, really? Why would I pay tax? So I've always argued in Europe, especially, the tax codes are so high, and they're so restrictive on people's ability to have disposable income. It just there's nowhere to go. So you either fuel a underground market where they hide their money, black money, and on the other side, what people do is say, well, I just won't pay the tax at all. I just won't file or whatever, or I'll do underground work, whether you're a bartender or you do roof refixings and just get paid in cash and all that kind of thing. And recently, the EU stopped printing 500 euro notes. They're no longer around. Now, I said to someone, I said, you think that's a big advancement? I said to him, do you know when the US government stopped printing $500 notes? And people looked at me and said, shit, I don't know. I said, it was 1969. Now, why was the US so far ahead of the curve? Because obviously they saw some crazy shit going on. A $500 bill was a lot of money back then. And quite frankly, I don't know what the hell people need to do with a $500 note.
I thought it was just like bank transfer. Wasn't there in the thousand? Wasn't
No,
okay.
no, those they were used as legal currency. I actually
That's
I have a
awesome.
few of them, and
That's
then they go
awesome.
to a thousand, and then they go to 5,000, and then they're 10,000 notes. But those were really bank transfer notes.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a guy who collects them. And he said, "Yeah, that those were so rare, but they still exist. I mean, you literally could take a 10,000 note and say, hey, I want to buy this, but." That was in 1934 they made those.
34.
1934? Who the making a $10,000 note? Even a $5,000 note. So
DuPont, Carnegie, I don't know, Rockefeller, E.H.
Capone,
Harriman,
yeah,
the Dulles brothers, you
yeah.
know?
I mean, can you imagine what was going on
What
in the
the fuck?
casinos and all of this? And as you say, people will find a way to either they crave it and they'll pay for it anyways. So I said to some people, I said, every country has their sovereign immunity or their sovereign laws, let's put it that way. And you must respect those. For instance, so if you and I, Tom, go to Hyde Park in London tomorrow, take a bottle of wine, sit in the park, and start drinking, it's totally legal. It's in public. Obviously, we'll throw the bottle away and try to be respectful, but we can drink in public, totally legal. Years ago, before all this medical and rec shit, you go to Amsterdam and smoke hash. No problem. You're not going to go to jail. Smoke it. Just don't do it out in public and all that. You go down to Saint Tropez, girls are topless. Why? Because that's the law. And I try to tell people that in the States, like, oh, well, the Europeans are a little bit crazy. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. These guys have certain laws and they've put them in place for a reason. It's not like it's some, just threw it together ragtag situation here. And the reason for my point here is these countries have laws that the U.S. don't agree with and call it, oh my gosh, that's not a good thing. You can't smoke hash, you can't drink in public because we can't handle it in the U.S. Or women topless at the beach. I mean, you can only imagine if Miami Beach was topless. I mean, it would be
Oh,
just
the
a
horror, the horror.
yeah horror show. Spring Break, yeah, spring rape is more like it. But I think that's the problem: is that the American psyche can't handle these types of things, but they're in place for a reason. So as we get into why laws exist of high taxes or you can smoke pot or whatever, people begin to say, hey, look, I'm going to look out for number one. And I just can't take it, like you said. Why would you say, oh, geez, I really feel as though I'm doing my good deed to pay high taxes when the school system sucks, the roads are a disaster, I can't get a medical appointment with the hospital without 3 referrals, and so on and so on and so forth. I mean, people start to get fed up. And that's a very dangerous thing because then this whole system can break down literally break down where people start to say, well, I'm not going to file taxes or I'm going to just break the law or I'm going to do whatever it takes to make my living because I can't make ends meet. The rich guys that we were talking about with the banks, as you say, if you can cheat and get away with it, oh, you're certainly going to do it. And whether it's in politics, in business, in sports, it exists. We've caught it every single time in every single decade since we've been alive. Remember when those basketball referees were taking kickbacks to
Yeah.
fix games? There you go. Pete Rose betting on his own games. Wonderful. Um,
Chicago
Joe.
Black Sox, the White
Yeah,
Sox, right?
yeah, say it ain't so, Joe. And a guy was betting on the World Series back in what 1920 or something.
Yeah.
So, and then in politics we could talk for hours. So, whether it's Iran Contra, it's Watergate. I mean, and it goes back way, way back. So I have to agree with you and say, look, well, one, human nature is greedy, and we're sort of animalistic, if you will. But also, it's sort of a dog eat dog world. It's Darwinianism at its best. Survival of the fittest. Who cares about the other guy?
It is kind of an odd thing that, when you look at other countries and it's like, yeah, they handle alcohol, they handle weed or nudity, and we are like, that's too much, that's insane. But there is something kind of funny about, but on the flip side, and I agree with it, I have several rifles. We can go buy guns, and when they look at it, they go, how could you do that? We go, what are you, pussy? No one's gonna tell me I can't own a gun. But then when it comes to drinking in pub, not even drinking's legal. Drinking in public, we're like, well, that's just the end of the line. And it's like there is something comical about like because you're right. If I looked at that, I live in Portland, Maine, and I smell weed all the time. And like, I'm like, I'm not a teetotaler, but part of me is like, it's so f***ed up. This world, and I literally have a shotgun full of incendiary ammo. I don't think twice of it. I'm like, oh, what's that? That's so I can light people on fire at a distance. Like, and I don't. The contradiction doesn't even make me pause for a millisecond. I go, well, of course I need that. But so in that sense, it seems to be the grass is always greener or lack thereof. But the balance between, and I'm only 35, I don't have a lot of world experience, some things though, it's like I think you said Jay Leno, he's like America gave me this wealth, I'm going to pay my hey, that's what it should be, right? And
Right,
even well Rockefeller not really because he was bailing out the government, but still in the loose sense, you still have these guys who did love the country for what like Teddy Roosevelt. He wasn't poor, he was of the Roosevelt family. Did love the country, and I do believe a lot of it's cynical and sociopathic, but to a degree, I do think you see that with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Whatever people's are opinions of them, they do it here, and they are pretty good spokesmen for America, like it or not. Um,
right,
but you have to have a system that's worth, even if it's not perfect, you don't want it to be so bad that it's completely imperfect. And by that I mean like everyone always knows tax is kind of horseshit and you probably don't need to pay that much or that much. It's but when everything's running fine, you can for the most part go to college. You can, it's not an impossibility to go get a 9 to 5 at the, Ford factory and yeah, you can probably afford 2.5 kids, nuclear family. When you
yeah,
have that, most people are pretty okay with that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm not. I'm a psychopath. I have to work. That's why I'm doing this instead of a normal thing. But like most people are okay with just that. It's an issue when just that is no longer provided, be it getting raped with taxes in Europe, and what do you get in return? You get third world Islamists, they're cutting off people's heads, and
right,
domestically, you're paying taxes out the ass, but there is no southern border. You have legal immigrants who are like, what the f why is there no southern border? You have 100,000 dead from fentanyl, 22 veteran suicides a day. And anytime anything happens in the world, we got to send your sons and daughters overseas on aircraft carriers to defend countries you can't point out. The
yeah.
social contract, it starts to erode. And I'm not even saying I agree with it, but just being pragmatic. At a certain point, people are gonna go, "F this shit, dude."
I'm
I'm go-"
done.
Yeah,
And that's it. And I mean, if you think about the other day, I was talking to someone about Barack Obama. I'm not a big fan of his, and I think it's starting to come out in the wash what a fraud this guy was.
sure.
So he was the one who said, if you don't take health insurance, you're going to be taxed. But yet, illegal immigrants are coming into the country and getting free health care, which we're paying for. So wait a minute, what? Think of the hypocrisy in that one. I get taxed if I don't take insurance, and then illegals come in and get it for free, and I'm paying for that. That's what's wrong with the system, and that's what exactly what you were saying. That system breaks down if you really analyze it properly. That's exactly what it is. Obamacare is a big disaster, and I'll tell you how Obamacare happened. This is a fact, and you can fact check it yourself. In 2008, when Hillary was running against Obama, she was, doing anything she could to try and get that step ahead of him, but she just couldn't seem to get that traction. And she opened her big mouth and said, "Oh, it's the 40th anniversary of RFK's assassination, 1968." And she made some reference like, you better be careful, like it might be and denigrated RFK.
Yeah.
Teddy Kennedy at the time went ballistic. It was right before he died, actually, and he mounted his forces all behind Obama, and that's where the swing took place. It's a true story. It was in North Carolina, I think, and she just rambled some babbling bullshit, and so the weight went behind Obama. And the reason why it's true is, what did Obama do? The first thing he did in office, he tried to pass health care,
Hmm.
and that was a gift to Kennedy. The second gift to Kennedy was, who did he make the ambassador to Tokyo, who had no experience in diplomatic relations? Was Caroline Kennedy.
No.
And I got this from one of his biggest donors of Ted Kennedy, who said he was furious. He was absolutely beyond belief, and that's how the whole thing came about. Obamacare.
And that is, I mean, I'm not a fan of Hillary, but there is something like comically gangster about that. Just
Yeah,
in a
right.
vacuum, like not
Right.
right. Just in a
Exactly.
vacuum. There's something so ballsy to just bring up RFK and be like, anyway, shit happens.
Yeah. I mean, someone might take a shot at you, Obama. You better fucking keep your head
That
down.
is, yeah, that is, I don't like her at all, but that is, yeah, credit where it's due, I guess. I mean, not maybe not credit, but what a gangster. But
She
like,
is a gangster, isn't
it
she? And
is, yeah.
you know, everything. And I remember when she tried to fix healthcare under Bill, and that was a debacle, and
Yeah,
made Bill look like a clown. And like, Bill, can you keep your wife in the kitchen and tell her to shut the fuck up?
exactly. And even this though, like these gangsters. So let's just take this as a to tie it into like why would Swiss banking happen? Like, all right, so post World War II, I think we 425,000 fatalities, but I think we had like 16 million veterans. That's an insane number.
Yeah,
And they're back, and Eisenhower's in office, and Cold War's kind of kicking off, and you have all this madness. And we look back at it, and people go like, well, the idyllic 1950s. Well, how is it idyllic? It's we're going abroad. The CIA is knocking over countries. We got firefighters shooting black people with hoses and blah 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 blah. But I don't think it's a trivial point to go, well then if it seems so bad, why was it also so idyllic? Because the average person had 3 meals and a home and a car. And
yep. And a
it's
vacation.
yeah, it's really not like I mean this as like, it's not rocket science. And so
And
when you get
it's sorry to add to
no,
it,
you're good.
if it's not in our neighborhood, we don't give a.
Which
If that's down in Detroit or Philly, who gives a?
Yeah, which is also how the human brain's supposed to operate. We're not supposed to get input from it. You're supposed to not know anything beyond your line of sight. Like that is what our
Right?
brains are. Our brains are not meant for this shit. We are in a hall of mirrors on LSD getting, news. You're supposed to know what happened to like the local tiger and like if somebody found a plant you can eat. Like that's really all you're supposed to know. And so I guess, as these systems get just exponentially more complex, you have this. And then you would have to go like, all right, so then why would somebody risk? You're always going to have people that are just outright, they want the risk or they want every penny, whatever. And then you're going to have that at all times. But as the system gets bloated and you have people, no matter what, they just want their money abroad. And again, there are personal reasons that like, yeah, I don't even like, I see eye to eye on that, a divorce or a business partner or what. Okay, sure. But when you have so many people doing it, and then you have politicians doing it, and they're getting kickbacks from doing it, it's creating this storm in one spot. And the very thing that built that, which is deception, which was sleight of hand, skullduggery, whatever you want to call it, as that builds, you also have to remember that is that is what it consists of. That's if you build a building with bricks, the building's made out of bricks. This whole system, and it might have taken centuries to get to that point, was built by secrecy and deceit and cheating. It is now populated by that. So when you get that memo and it's like backdated and there's no red keys on it, and you go, these, but it's all like there's no honor amongst, like, of course they're gonna do that to you. So in a poetic way, its own creation, I guess, foretold its own down because there's no like, I will not throw Brad under the bus. He's my homie. Now the whole thing is about like, suitcases of cash and
Cash.
call me and it's just just a brick of gold. Like it at a certain point you look at it, you go, yeah. I mean, it's like building a Jenga tower a mile high. Like you're not gonna be too surprised when it leans. You're gonna be like, all right, well, it was fun. And so I don't know, maybe, and this might go beyond lifetimes. This might be something where you have to zoom out and go, okay, it was built up over centuries, and it might take another 80 years until like the full effect of what you did it becomes apparent. Like I don't know, this might be on human lifespan, but I
A
would
good point.
imagine, yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of credence in what you said because again, let's go back in time. Let's go back to nobles and lords and all this stuff and kings and queens and who knows what. It was a two-class system. Let's just call it that. There was the nobility and there were the serfs. And I'm going back, let's say, to the medieval times. And there's a lot of wealth. Wealth was inherited. Wealth was garnished. They would invade the local the village next door or the state or the whatever, and that's what happened. But then all the serfs worked for one guy. Why did they come to America? They came to America because you could have two things that you couldn't have in Europe: religious freedom and own land. Period. And that's a really interesting statement when you take it in the big context, as you say, as you zoom out. Because, quite frankly, monies were stored in gold in the castles and all that kind of stuff. But what was wealth? Wealth was land, probably food, and obviously gold coins if you had gold coins because that was valuable. So I think treasures and all that shit. But I think over time, that's where the human psyche comes in. It's about hoarding, even if you can't spend it. I mean, is it really possible to think? I remember once. This was a great story. I was working as an intern at State Street Bank, and Bill Gates started to make a lot of money. I mean, the shares were going up, and he became a billionaire, and blah 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 blah. And they said one thing. This is a great story. He said if Bill Gates was walking down the street, he stopped, he looked down, he saw $100 bill, he bent over, picked it up, and put it in his pocket. He lost money.
Yeah, because he could have made more. Yeah, per second, he could have made more working.
Right. I mean, so at a certain point, you got to ask yourself, how much is enough? Now, people will always say, well, it's funny you should say that, how big a boat you need, how many homes you need, how many cars you need, all that shit. But it's really true. And when you look at some of the ultra wealthy, the super wealthy people, well, the oligarchs are a bad example because these guys are just total thieves. How is it that people in less years became billionaires when it took Bill Gates 20 years to do it?
Hmm.
Or Bezos or whatever you want to say, or Musk. And I think what we begin to realize, whether it's the legitimate guys in the world who built businesses and moved up, yeah, Gates stole DOS from IBM. So let's be frank there. You stole it. Then you come over, and then they tried to fuck Paul Allen while he had cancer. He's a real beaut. Then you go over to the other side of, you may not like Bezos and so forth. And I'm not a big fan of Bezos, but whatever. He's a rich guy and he did well. Super. But the two things that Bill Gates and Bezos did, they made the worst business decision of their life. They cheated on their wives and wrote checks for billions of
Oh yeah,
dollars.
no, the retarded.
I mean, you got to be kidding. These are the 2 billion, probably the two richest guys, I mean, Musk aside, that were just like, wow, Bezos, wow, Gates. And you made the worst business decision of your life. You brought it upon yourself, cheated on your wife, and wrote a check for 20 billion, 30 billion, whatever the hell they wrote. I mean, dude, why isn't anyone talking about this?
I think because in a weird way, it's almost the only camaraderie you can have with them. Nothing else
And
they do is identifiable in your life.
precisely. So, oh, they're rich, they're this, they got boats and yachts,
Like
and they go
that
to,
idiot had a side piece.
yeah, I mean, and it was a moose face, that
Yeah,
girl. I
I
mean,
know, I know. It's
Bezos. And
horrific.
then Gates tried to justify something about Epstein's Island or whatever. I mean, you really think Melinda Gates doesn't know what the is going on?
No, they all know.
They
They,
all know.
they all know, and it's that the whole thing is it's all again none of it's built on fraternal bonds. It's the opposite. It's none of it's like I got your back, dude. It's the opposite. It's I'll skin you alive if you
Yeah.
skin me alive.
And I'm greedy and I'll take whatever I want and I want it now.
And so long as it's on the up and up or it's just not falling apart, a lot of them stay in it. Yeah, if any one of us speaks, you get killed. And but we all still get our billions and our assets and our whores and our luxury and our blah 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 blah. It's when it starts to go down is where you see the whole, the rats fleeing the ship. And yeah, and this is one thing I always have kind of thought about is the go-getters, like the real doers who go out and build shit. Your Carnegies, your Rockefellers, your whatever, your
Melons.
yeah. The ones who go out and do it. And they are always going to exist. Those people are going to exist. The ones who truly, I mean, like tame the West, build railroads out when you're killing India, like create a standardized oil system, Rockefeller, or like all the different rubber, or even Germany, Krupp, building all these artillery pieces. You're always going to have these powerhouses who just get out, go and do. And in my mind, the imagery that always comes up is like they're like a particularly strong horse, like a Clydesdale. And if you and most people are not that, they're smaller horses. Now, what you can do is you can say we're going to capture everything they do, and that's where you have things that say the Soviet Union. You're going to minimize because it doesn't matter if it's justified or not. A lot of these guys, they want it all. They want the castle, they want the 100-bedroom manor, they want the yacht, they want the private train car. And you can say that's wrong. You don't need all of that. And you can cap it and say 100% of what you do is taken by the government. They're going to stop doing as much as they can. So long as another place exists where they can do it, they will flee to that country, and then that new country, however imperfect it is, will harness the power of that horse. So I guess my opinion that I've always kind of had is like, yes, in an ideal world, we wouldn't kill each other, and there'd be, I get all of that, and it's a noble goal to work towards. The people that actually go out and do and get it done, do they need billions? No, I would agree with you. You don't need 30 penthouses. But if they're not here making X tax rate, if China or whatever offers them a third of that tax rate, eventually they're gonna go, yeah, I don't really like China, but I could be a god there. They're gonna go there. So I guess I have, I don't know, somewhat of a jaded view of like it's not perfect, but I'd rather have these giant horses, a Bezos, a Gates, a Steve Jobs, a whatever, Mark Cuban. I'd rather have them here with the US reins in their mouth. And yeah, they're storing it offshore and shit. But I'd rather have them here pulling this carriage because the world is a zero-sum game. If they're not here, they're pulling China's. And it's so I guess when I look at something like Swiss banking, sure, ideally, it's like, yeah, you would just nuke it, get rid of it. More pragmatically, I mean, I would hope that Trump would just be like, hey, there's like a 24-month window. Bring back all your money, 5% tax rate.
Yep.
That's so much more law. Well, they should be paying money. Yeah, I get what should be, but I'm trying to look at like pragmatically, what will happen?
Well,
Uh,
who's participating in that? Is it CIA, which
correct.
is really not too happy with those cats who try to sink him, and then the FBI, DOJ that sort of cherry picks who they're going to prosecute, and the very fact that this has been going on for so long, as you said, politicians, CEOs, sports stars, celebrities, whatever, and now you start to ask yourself, okay, if it's working that way, and it'd be hard to dismantle it, the only way to do it is to expose it, as I did. And by exposing it, it was just became such a cataclysmic change. They had to find a bad guy, which was just me. Very simple. So you begin to look. I look back in time now, and I'm starting to really see some of the elements of this. Was, nobody wanted to uncover this. I mean, this was just the worst thing they could ever do. Somewhat like Snowden. He
Hmm.
exposed all the bullshit. Now, you can call him a traitor and this and that. You were breaking the law. He exposed it because he knew he couldn't trust any of you assholes.
Yeah.
And now he's the bad guy?
Uh, that's a perfect microcosm. You just go, why did he do that? He shouldn't have done that. Okay, sure. You'd spend your life in the military or intelligence community. Okay, sure. What was it that he was exposing? Dragnet surveillance, where the head of the NSA, the DNI, James Clapper, said in front of Congress on TV, there's no
Yep.
domestic spying. They did that. They went into the Teleco, great book, Shadow Factory by James Bamford. They went into they called it surgery, where they'd have NSA guys go in there and they would splice the cables and have one that went in some special pipe that went off to like Langley or Fort Meade. He did all this stuff. So what was he exposed? It's one thing if he comes out and starts blowing the whistle on like a stealth bomber.
Right.
Okay, yeah, sure, in a vacuum there shouldn't be war. I get that, but grow the up.
You're right.
If you're
We're in
doing
we're in a
this, you kind of go, well, what did he expose? Well, we were
and everyone
spying
tried
on
to say, "Oh,
everybody.
he put so many agents at risk." What agents? Now you might say, "Well, a lot of them got killed, and we'll never know who they are." Oh, what a
Crush
great
some
line
dog
that
shit.
is! Sure, I'm going to go down the bunny trail too with the Mad Hatter here. But I mean, when up is down and down is up.
Yeah,
So the thing is that even Obama said we what we were doing was wrong. So why is he castigated? Okay, then you can look at someone like Julian Assange. Here's another whistleblower. Now, a lot of people said he put everyone at risk. Well, he actually exposed a lot of shit you guys shouldn't have been doing. I didn't see any prosecutions of those people. The guys that were laughing, shooting at the media in Iraq, killing the women and children and reporters. I didn't see any of those guys go to jail. And don't give me this military immunity crap. You guys are so sophisticated. You get so much stuff, and I understand it's a hot zone. I get it.
sure.
People are trying to kill you. I'd be on edge too. But when you certainly had the time and the knowledge, and it was on the recordings, it was there. So I mean, in an act of war, I must say, if I ever was put into a Vietnam situation, man, I would have just shot him a
I would have shot
squirrel,
anything that moved. And yeah,
anything that moves, I'd shoot it. Yeah,
yeah,
and you're being put into a position that's very harsh. But still, that being said, I mean, all these things that have gone on over the years that they've condoned or cheated and lied about, whether it's the heroin being shipped from the Golden Triangle to New York, which was under the Nixon administration,
yep.
Watergate, Iran Contra. I mean, this whole Russian hoax shit. I mean, really, you're going to tell me that Comey, Clapper, Brennan, all these assholes were behind that? And they still sit there today and act as though, oh no, Russia was interfering. Let it go. You know what? You're digging your grave even deeper, and people are getting pissed off. I'll tell you right now, whether you're Democrat or Republican in the whole universe of America, doesn't really matter so much as if you just believe the facts and say, look, this just does not make sense.
Yeah.
How is it that Trump gets a charge in 3 different states by Letitia James and this dickhead in Washington, and then the woman Fannie Willis, whatever her name is down there, and all get caught for breaking the law. She hires her lover at 3 times the price down in Georgia. The guy in Washington is just a total hater and wasn't even legally there to represent him. And then in New York, they change with this E. Jean Carroll shit. The statute of limitations expired, and they changed the law and then charged them. I mean, you know, that's where you're talking about when the system breaks down. I'm firmly believe where people are so pissed off. I was one of them, and I said, no, I'm putting my dollar on that horse because you know what? I'm pissed off the games that they played, and now it's really coming out. And now you got Adam Schiff in the crosshairs, leaking intelligence from the intelligence committee to undermine a presidential candidate. I mean, you got to be kidding me.
There and again, yeah, you look back at World War II and even like I think on D-Day, like when we were going to like soften up the targets with bombers, it was the weather was shit and they were off target by like 10 miles and they just carpet bombed the town.
No,
And like that, it's horrible. But 85 million people died in World War II. That doesn't mean the guys in the bombers are jerking off. If they probably didn't even know that they missed targets until 3 years later when they were told. Yeah, that sucks. And you can look at that and you go, yeah, war is hell, and that was total war. I get it. My late uncle was in Vietnam, and I don't think he ever talked about it. He was just up the rest of his life. He was drafted at 18. So like, I get that. I have friends who were, my age who were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I mean, I've known them. I know them back and forth. I've drank with them, and you see like this is not a bad guy, and you can tell like they're scarred. Like shit happened. Like I get that, but when it's so in your face. There has to be a
and planned.
yes,
It's orchestrated. It's
yes.
not like, okay, geez, Tom, you and I got to go in and take that bunker or whatever. It's almost like, well, once you go in there, we're gonna loot this shit and fucking
Yeah.
put this over here and do that there. And I don't know where this comes from. Is it human nature? Is it just the art of war? Meaning you're in the middle of this shit and say, I put my life on the line. I'm going to take a little bit for me. I don't know.
I think it
Doesn't
might
seem
I think
right.
it might be a total suspension of I don't know. I mean, you might just go back to full primal like I'm dead tomorrow. Like I'm gonna
Right.
rape, I'm gonna steal, and I don't know about that. And then it's But when you do look at when things are so, it's like you see all of that, and it's like, well, how come you don't hear about a whistleblower for every civilian death? Because a lot of dudes are probably like, dude, you don't like, you have no idea. It was an accident. We were getting shot at, and like, and it haunts me every day. And that's why you don't hear about every. So you don't. Why does every Marine not rat on every other Marine? Because they were there, and they're like, yeah, he wasn't a psycho. Shit happens. Like, so
Yeah.
but then begs the question of like, well, then who does blow a whistle? Like, how bad does it have to be? Vietnam, you have the My Lai massacre. Like, well, what does happen? Well, when you're looking at this thing, you're Snowden and you're going through all this shit, and you're like, it's not this one-off of like, okay, there was this domestic terrorist, and we did break the law, we domestically surveilled them, but we stopped this one thing. You go, okay, I get it, it's a gray area. Dragnet survey X key score was so that so you could surveil every keystroke, even if you backspaced a message. And that was like 2002. So that was
Yeah.
23 years ago. When it's so overpowering, you go, yes, he's not blowing the whistle because it was kind of, it had to be so in
Maybe.
your face
Yeah.
that you were like, Like if you accuse someone of being a pedophile or a serial killer, like you're not doing that on a whim. You're like, I've lived in this town for 20 years.
Enough's
Nothing's ever
enough.
made sense. I got a hunch. You gotta, there's really an impetus to be like, what is this? And so that's what I mean. Is so, and again, to you, it's like, well, why did he blow the whistle? It's because he saw somebody get a $20 bribe. No, like, shut up, grow up.
Yeah,
It's when it's so just,
egregious.
just violently in your face. And this is before you knew, and this is an important part, is this is before you knew there was a whistleblower award. Let's
Exactly. That's
and
what I
let's
tell them.
no, no, and that's again what makes the book so great. But let's just say, let's not even take the book. Let's assume you have that was your motive, which it wasn't. But let's say it was. That alone, I would still understand it. I go, okay, here's this thing. It's got trillions of dollars, and he's going this, and well, what are the risks? Well, they might kill you with some Delta Force guys,
Yeah.
or I get 100 million. That would be impetus to go. I'll roll those dice. Now that's not why you were doing it. Again, everybody get the book. But that alone would make sense to me to go, oh, okay. Like there's
And
a
it's
reason.
incentivizing people to come forward. And
Yes.
that's the other thing people have to understand. So we're going to sit back here and say, my neighborhood, your neighborhood is no longer safe because whether there's a drug dealer down the street or someone's hitting cars and selling them all across the border, whatever. And you start to say to yourself, well, the police can't police everything for a variety of reasons. They're either understaffed, under budgeted, or part of the problem, or all of the above. So then you begin to say to yourself, how do we circumvent that potential problems that I just listed there? Well, one way is just put up a whistleblowing program. You get a guy on the inside who will save you the time of the investigation. He'll tell you the names, dates, and places of people who committed the crimes. You'll go right to the source, and it's done. You don't have these long, drawn out 5-year investigations. We'll give it to you in about 3 weeks, a
Yeah.
month. And I think that's really where whistleblowing is an extension of law enforcement. But law enforcement sometimes doesn't like it in my case because it makes them look bad.
Hmm.
Well, where the was the DOJ for the last 50 years? What were you doing? Eating donuts? And I said that to him. We almost got in a fist fight in there because I was like, I mean, why does it take me to come across the pond to educate you clowns and you still fucked it up? And see, that's the real kicker. And now, okay, well, that's just civil servants at DOJ. But any whistleblowing program say, look, who doesn't like it? The guys who are breaking the law. Let's say it's a Fortune 500 company. So the colleagues probably like to have it because it cleans up their work environment. They work in a better place. Certainly the shareholders like it. The D&O carrier likes it. So who doesn't like it? And I think that's where that whole mindset of a whistleblowing program will help transform the old legacy bullshit where you're getting kickbacks and double dipping and whatever the you're doing. Because whistleblowing will be the even keel that brings it back into harmony. And I'm convinced of it. I've seen it. We had a whistleblowing case. We helped these guys in Greece. And you can't believe this story. This story I really got to tell you because it's
Yeah,
such a
go
good
for it.
whistleblowing story. And I'm in Malta, and I was in my townhouse there, and I get a phone call from the law firm in Greece. I said, "Hi, Mr. Birkenfeld, how are you? This is so and so." And I said, "Yeah, nice to hear your voice. What can I do for you?" He says, we have 3 whistleblowers, and we would really like your help in their case. Would you come to Greece?" I said, "No, you can come to Malta though." "No, well, I don't know you guys. I don't know who the you are. Come to Malta." Next week they came to Malta. So they sat with me and they told me the story about they were prescribing drugs illegally and pushing them, and before they were approved and all this stuff. And it was the Swiss giant Novartis. It's a true story. Anyways, I said, what's the problem? He says, well, they got an attorney in Washington who filed a whistleblowing claim and got a case number. I said, what's the problem? He says the attorney left. I said, what are you talking about? It can't be. Because number one, an attorney can't leave a case unless there's cause, like you don't pay him or you're yelling at him or whatever. But these were contingency fees. So I'm thinking, there's something not right here. What do you mean? He filed it? He got you an IRS and SEC case number. At that point, it's up to the IRS and SEC to investigate it and use the information provided to really get to the heart of the crime. Well, I give it to my attorney. I said, look, can you take this case over and just try and clean this up? This is up. And then I thought about it. Of course, they paid the guy off. So coming back to your earlier point, when does it all end? You're you did the guy should be in jail, and it gets better because I had another whistleblowing case from Europe, and I went and met this guy, but he didn't know what I knew. And my attorney from Germany was with me, and we're sitting in the boardroom in a DC law firm. I'll give you the guy's name. His name's Beto, real prick. And we're sitting there trying to get a case going and this, and he's just saying it takes so long and this and that. I'm like, do you guys want business or you don't want business? And we had it all laid out, but it was a complex case, but it was quite interesting because, offshore trust and all this thing. But we had everything. And then I finally just looked at him and said, weren't you the attorney on that Novartis case in Greece? He turned white. And my attorney, I was just sort of hit him under the table with my foot. And we knew before I was going to drop the bomb on him. And he said, I don't know what you mean. I said, no, you know exactly what I mean. You were on that case with the 3 whistleblowers in Athens, Greece, on the Novartis case. You filed the IRS and SEC thing on this date. You got him a case number. That man, he shit Tiffany cufflinks. And he just sort of changed the subject. But the reason why I tell the story, it's like, even if you're a whistleblower, well, my case, as you know what happened, and their case, their own attorney walked.
Yeah.
Because they got bribed. So, I mean, this is why, even more so, why the whistleblower is so powerful, because it gives the people the power to come forward. It was a Democratic intelligence staffer, long-term staffer that did this thing against Schiff. So what, you're going to say it was a Republican? No, it was a Democrat. It was one of your own, and said he really was in trouble. He went to the FBI for 5 years, and they shunned him. I had guys that went to the FBI. I went to the FBI in the Hunter Biden laptop. Not one answer. And just to prove it, I screenshotted the report I filed. I gave emails, phone numbers, this. I'll come in person. I'll do this, I'll this, or this. Nothing. And I don't know if I've told this, but I was the one who financed the Hunter Biden laptop to be in the book form. It's 640 pages. Garrett Ziegler of Marco Polo. You should go get it. You got to get your copy. Dude, this book is the worst book you will ever see in your life.
Oh, God.
And the reason why I tell you that story is because it links right into my book in the end, where the last chapter I talk about Keith Abloh. So that whole thing was another thing where I get called to Boston to help a whistleblower. And I said to my friend, well, what's he do? He's a psychiatrist. And I said, don't waste my time with this shit. I don't have time for this. He said, no, you don't understand. He's Hunter Biden's psychiatrist. I said, what? But he was a Republican. Why would Hunter go to him? And Brad, he lived with him for 3 months. I said, what do you mean he lived with him? He lived with his doctor? He says, yeah, for 3 months. They were doing threesomes with the secretary, Tiffany Bartholomew. They were smoking grass. I said, this is... How is this possible? You got a Democratic derelict with a Republican psychiatrist who got divorced and then lost his license to practice and lives with him for 3 months. And then doing drugs and sex and threesomes or whatever. Okay. So then he wants to be a whistleblower. I mean, it gets crazy. So I go to see him with my friend Walt, and we're sitting in his dining room, and we're talking. And I gave him my book. He said, I want to be a whistleblower. And this is a whistleblower on what? He says, well, he was my client. So then we start thinking, holy shit, what the fuck does this guy know? And then he's like, well, I've got this medical privilege. I said, actually, you don't. You've lost your license to practice. So there is no medical privilege once you lose your license. Whether you think you can keep practicing or not, that's a whole nother thing. And that's another felony there. You can't practice medicine if you lost your license. But he ignored that. So I said, okay, I'll introduce you to my attorney in Washington, and we'll see, if you guys want to do something, I might. He goes, he wanted me to buy his claim. So I'm not buying the claim. First, we've got to see if you have a claim. But then we start thinking what the claim might be. So I knew another whistleblower who was the compliance officer at J.P. Morgan in New York City, who hired my attorney, who quit his job, hired my attorney, and filed 140 SARS, suspicious activity reports, against the Biden family. Not like one or two against someone and it might look weird. 140. Really? What happened to those 140 SARS? Anyway, so that was that guy over there. You got the psychiatrist over here telling me he's a whistleblower. And all of a sudden, this thing starts to unravel. Anyways, I go to Washington, set up the meeting. He doesn't show up. I said, "Where are you?" He says, "I missed my flight." I said, "I'm pissed. I'll set up for tomorrow, but you better show because I don't have time for this nonsense." He shows up in Washington, doesn't go to the meeting, gets cold feet. So I said, "Off, don't ever call me again." So I'm pacing in the Trump Hotel in Washington. I called Senator Grassie's office, said, "I need to come up and talk to you guys." Said, "Oh, Brad, what's going on? You're in town." Da, da, da. I said, yeah. What's it about? I said, "It's not a secure line. I need a skiff. You got to get me up there." He says, "Come up in 2 hours." I go up to the hill, see the guys, the staffers, senior staffers, great guys. And I said, "Look, everything we're saying is under oath, right?" He says, "Yeah, of course. Why would you say that?" I said, "Just want to make sure we all know the playing rules here. So I have no reason to lie to you. That's why I'm coming to you. I'm the whistleblower." So I tell him this story about Dr. Keith Ablow and Hunter Biden. And he tells us to go check out Monkey Island in Louisiana. And I'm looking at my friend in the room when we're seeing him. First at Keith Ablow's home. And I'm like, "What the fuck's Monkey Island?" Later find out, and you can Google it, Monkey Island in Louisiana was an LNG tanker center that Hunter negotiated with the Chinese and got paid offshore. Got a fee offshore for that one. I mean, and the list goes on and on. So anyways, I'm there with Grassley's people. I tell him about the guy, Brent Shaheen, JP Morgan, who did the SARS. I said, "This guy is got the goods on the Bidens." Then I got Hunter Biden's psychiatrist, and I'm in the middle of this. I know both of these guys. And I'm thinking to myself, okay. So I said, "Yeah, I think you better subpoena him before he's murdered." And they said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you know if a crime's going to be committed?" I said, "No, I'm not a magician, but I can just tell you, I can put two and two together and tell you it's four. This guy has got one of the Hunter Biden laptops, and he was a psychiatrist and lived with him for 3 months, and da 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 da. He knows everything." Don't you think a psychiatrist would know everything if you lived with him for 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he has the laptop, the memos, the diary, da da. There were 3 laptops, one in California, one with him, and one at that store down in Maryland or Delaware, whatever. So, anyways, they take all this information. I give them the information on the guy from JP Morgan, give them the information on Keith Apple. And I said, "Look, if there's anything else I can help you with, I'll be happy to help." Blah, blah, blah. I leave. This is in 2019. I leave and I go back to my hotel. The next day, my friend who brought me together with Keith Ablow up at his home in Newburyport, Mass, says, "Are you watching TV?" I said, "No, I don't watch TV. I'm still in D.C., Walt." "Oh, well, I got to send you the link." 2 days after I testified, 12 DEA agents from Boston raided his home and took everything. 2 days after I testified. Have we seen an indictment in 7 years? No. And all that shit is gone. They buried it. So I can tell you firsthand, I have seen this shit, whether it's at UBS in Switzerland or it's the bullshit DEA in Boston and all these people playing political games. And I can tell you right now, the whole thing has started to unmask itself, and it's going to get much uglier. I've said this
Mm-hmm.
to people years ago. Yeah, but look at this thing now with Schiff and this and that and Clapper and Brennan. You just can't make this up. Why are they even talking? Why are they even sitting there? What, they take you and I for fools? Guys, you look like jackasses. You signed a letter that this laptop looks definitely like
Russian
it was
disinfo.
Russian acts and this and that. When you knew it was a crock of shit. Christopher Steele dossier is purchased by Hillary campaign and herself. Fact. FBI knew it. But you still push the narrative. Why? Okay, it's all this political jockeying bullshit. But put a few of these in jail. I mean, put that Comey in jail, Brennan. You lied to Congress. You lied. So on that little rant there, because I tell you why it's so important, because it was Keith Ablow wanted to be a whistleblower, and that's why I put him in my book, the last chapter, and all this stuff was he was blowing the whistle on Hunter Biden. But I had stuff on Hunter Biden even before him about other contacts. My buddy at JP Morgan down in New York City, who did the 140 SARS. I had shit on them in Tanzania and Romania. And I gave that to Peter Schweitzer and John Solomon in the news. And they said, Brad, what are you talking about? I said, let me tell you a story, guys. I spent a lot of time in Romania because my grandfather was from there, but I go back and visit. I have friends and so forth. So I met these generals who wanted to be whistleblowers once again. And I said, you guys want to come to D.C.? And they said, no. So why? We even though we're in the military, we don't trust these guys. I said, all right, tell me your story. Seems as though Hillary and co. tried to approach him like the Christopher Steele dossier, which he was just a patsy, this dickhead,
Hmm.
and got paid. Let's just call it what it is. But he still broke the law. He should be in jail. He interfered in the press, but that's a whole nother thing. So then I said, what's going on? He said, well, they approached us. These guys, who's they? He said, well, sort of black ops type of guy and the Clinton campaign and all that, to get on the internet outside the U.S. in Romania and badmouth Trump to make it look like it was Russian interference and this and that. I said, do you have any proof of it? He said, well, we don't have the proof of that, but because we rejected it, we said we wouldn't do it. 2 months later, our security contract in Tanzania was canceled by the State Department. 90 million euros. I said, can I see the contract? They showed it to me. I'm like, holy shit. I said, what's the reason they gave for canceling it? No reason. Just cancel it because they wouldn't play ball with them. I share this information with John Solomon and Peter Schweitzer, who I respect. These guys. They're very good investigative reporters. Peter did the forward to my book, as you know.
Hmm.
And they said, Brad, we don't know really what you're talking about. We don't say you're lying. I said, guys, just make notes of what I'm not telling you, and I'm going to give you some more information. Well, lo and behold, they get a cache of emails 3 years later, and they said, holy shit. We started seeing all this traffic with Tanzania and with Romania. And I said, I told you. And this is where it just spreads. Whether it's the Russian collusion, whether it's let's badmouth Trump outside the country, let's do the kickbacks in China and here and there. And it happened, Tom. I mean, I'm telling you. And that's where I just digest all this information. When I can bring it together, I can cut the fat out and say, wait a minute. Whether it's the dickhead who got bribed on the Novartis case, whether it's the DEA that buries information. And what does all this mean? What's the common denominator? I'm through. I'm going to come in like a cruise missile through the front door and blast these people because that's what I do best now. Because you can't. What are you going to do? Kill me? Good luck. I mean, that'll get you nowhere. But what's going to happen is my stories are so much bigger. The tentacles go too deep. So people are playing with fire right now because what's happened is these things are being exposed case by case by case. And the book, thankfully, is building more credibility because now it's worldwide. It's in 10 languages. And I lecture. And people are like, wow, this is an incredible story. Whether I'm on your podcast or I'm at an event in Washington, D.C., or I'm lecturing in Warsaw, Poland, people are just curious to find out, well, what the hell's going on? I said, that's where whistleblowing is the fundamental changing force in the world today. Because every industry is corrupt, every single one. Even the UN has done a report on this, said 15 to 30% of every industry is corrupt.
Hmm.
So how are you going to fix it?
It seems that whistleblowing is, you said, an extension of law enforcement. I think it's an extension, in addition to that, of capitalism. Put a
Yeah.
price on it, because if we're talking about how f***ing rotted through every industry is, we are passively admitting that the human character across the board isn't too great. We are then relying on said human character to do the right thing for no reason. And I go, well, I don't. No, you did. You went out and did. I got banned from YouTube in 2021 for interviewing Dr. Malone, Dr. McCullough, just talking about, who should and shouldn't get the shot. That's few and I don't mean that like a pat ourselves in the back. I mean, it's just statistically, it's few and far between, right? There's no reward for really doing the right thing. If there's a monetary reward, it sounds cynical, but I think it's much more realistic. That is a way in which you'll have people who have a reason to step out of line and go, these people. In terms of, so it's like, but then what do you even do when you are a whistleblower? You get a lawyer, and it turns out the lawyer's, or it's like your report, you're blowing the whistle. It's a bold move to blow the whistle in the NSA. Like, you need to thank you, Tommy, for coming in, and as soon as you leave, you press a button, and you get two Navy SEALs, and you go shoot that guy, right? You
Yep.
have that. Okay. But as a large system of billions of self-aware individuals who shit and piss and eat and sleep, it is infinitely complex. At a certain point, like termites, it's so rotted
Yeah.
that eventually it will start to come down on itself. And really, the only way you can work with that is you do have to sort of minimize it and go, no, just tell the truth, whistleblower, everybody. You can't wiggle around. You can't, let's try to negotiate when it's so almost like the end of World War II. It gets to the point where they're just like, just nuke them, but they might
Yeah.
surrender. I don't care. End this shit. It's your dad. It's like your dad's out of patience. He comes home. I don't care who started it. Everybody shut the. That's we're approaching that point, and maybe it's been building for 200 years, and not just the United States, around the world, but the intelligence agencies running abroad. It's like the termites are eating through, and we're hitting a point where the only thing to do is you can't negotiate. You can't look at it and, well, who am I going to side with? And, what fiefdom am I going to ally with? You hit a point where like someone like Snowden, there was no reward. Okay.
Exactly.
Assange, no reward. Manning, no reward. Now you get a point to it. It's like, as it gets worse, you you don't even need the financial incentive because you start to have people going, I'm not sleeping at night. This is eating my soul.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know. Is there a God? Do I have to go talk to him after this? You have people that are like, man, I'm blowing the whistle just because, like, I don't, this is not good.
I
And
can't live with myself. Exactly.
correct.
And even if you blow the whistle, yeah, that's why the incentives make sense because you can't ever work again. And I
Yeah.
talked to many, many
Oh,
people
sure. Yeah,
about
sure.
because I mean, okay, really, who's going to pay the rent? Who's going to pay for the
Yeah.
student, the kids go to school? Who's going to put food on the table? Who's going to be able to, support your lifestyle? And I say to people, but these awards come from the crime, not from the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So that alone speaks for itself. But I mean, I think, as you rightly said, if you don't rectify this nefarious acts, whatever it is, whether it's construction, military, finance, pharmaceutical, whatever, you're then condoning it
Hmm.
by default. So you've set a bad precedent and there's no deterrent. You're actually incentivizing the bad behavior. That's where the whistleblowing is the antithesis to this. And they're saying, wait a minute, no. You think you're funny, you're gonna get away with this, whether you're making bad drugs or you're doing offshore business or this or that. Someone might call you out on it. And you better be careful because it's not gonna be pretty. And you start putting a few of these CEOs in jail, I guarantee this whole thing gets cleaned up pretty damn fast. Not totally, but you've got to do something to send a message,
Hmm.
not just say, "Oh yeah, we find you," and no one goes to jail. Well, fine. Why don't you and I go rob Bank of America, steal 10 million bucks, and give back 8, and say we're sorry?
Yeah.
You know?
And again, even from like you know, well, no one's going to do this. Why would they make the world better just to make it better? I like to try to look at things cynically because I also believe that that's like the most realistic way. And I go, at a certain point, you're going to have these guys, Bezos, Musk, Gates, whoever, Trump, and you're going to have to start looking at it and being like, guys, I'm not saying like let's start enforcing the law because I'm all feeling all fu warm and fuzzy. I'm saying this entire thing's going down, and your yacht won't matter when a bunch of cannibals are out to kill you. Like, like you like your penthouse, like, hey, New York is going to be lit on fire because that's where it's going globally. It's careening up to like 1789 French Revolution, where and people in hindsight go, well, the French Revolution wasn't totally principled. The Reign of Terror was. Well, that's what happens when there isn't a principle. Self-fixing mechanism is it goes insane, and then the only thing to do is cleansing fire. And then a lot of people get, how many people got decapitated in the Reign of Terror? People weren't even involved, but you hit a point when no one was getting punished. You go, it, get them all.
Yeah.
And that's
And,
where it goes.
and I think you've seen this in Oregon, New York, L.A. I mean, throwing rocks at ICE, thinking that they can't do their job.
Yeah.
Like, or the very fact that someone says defund the police, or people from the media outlets are pissed off because Trump blocks them from the White House, the very fact we even have to have this discussion is a problem, let alone the problem itself.
And I guess the best way to word it, we can kind of bring it to a close with this, is I read this book last year about Teddy Roosevelt and how he wanted to, he had all these dreams. Like first he's, wherever he was at Harvard or some shit, and he's just being Teddy Roosevelt, or he's just like wrestling bears and whatever the that guy did, and total badass, and he wants to become like a lawyer, and then he wants to become a police chief, and as he was doing this, and as he was cleaning up corruption, and like people hated him because he would like fire all these police chiefs who were like getting money from, turning a blind eye to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And as it kept going up, and he, gets to DC, and he talks about one day he walked by the White House, and he's like, and then I just had a thought, like, could I one day be the president? And he has that hope, he has that desire, but he also knew enough to go, like, I could tell when it wasn't my time. And there wasn't, it's not as simple as like multiple choice. One plus one, you go, well, it's not three. It's not. He talked about it more. He said, it's a kaleidoscope. I think that was his exact quote. He goes, it's a kaleidoscope, and it's almost impossible to predict. But what's not impossible to predict is just to look at it and go, oh, there's a new thing. And then, you don't have to have any understanding of calculus or geometry. If you just look at a cloud, you go, it's like going in between radio stations, fuzzy, 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 fuzzy song, fuzzy,
Yeah.
fuzzy, fuzzy, fuzzy song. He goes, politics, especially at its national level, is a kaleidoscope with finance and military and industry and foreign powers and blah, blah, blah. And you just have to know when to strike. And I think when he's giving one of his like presidential, he's running finally, he's at someplace in New York, and people are throwing streamers and like silver dust in the air. And he goes, and it looks like a kaleidoscope, which is, poetic, whatever. My
Hmm.
point is like, he looked at it, and this isn't some dude that, became the manager of his local 7-Eleven. Not to shit
Right.
on people who do that, but like he was going for the big seat, the president of the United States. And he knew to just, he said, just, it's a kaleidoscope. And then what it was, once the door cracks open, then you just hit it with a shape charge and blow the entire thing off the hinges. But you have to bide your time, and you only really get one chance. Listening to your book, and then like what has happened to me since then, since we last spoke. So I had like Dr. Malone, he has the patent for the mRNA vaccine. Dr. McCullough is a huge cardiologist. 6 months after I had them on, they went on Joe Rogan's show and became his first and second most downloaded episodes of all time. The White House called out Rogan, but I had these guys on my show first, and I got banned from YouTube, but nobody gave a because I had like 1,000 subscribers. Which, fair enough, I get it. I'm not or anything. But I look at that, and then I get kicked off that, and that sucks. And I get kicked off Facebook and Instagram and Reddit and Twitter, and I'm just like, what the f am I doing? But I felt that I was doing the right thing because I have these doctors. It's not me. It's these doctors saying like, no, this is not good. This is immoral against the Hippocratic Oath. Okay. So I just kept going that way, and it took years of being on Rumble and Spotify and all these none of the mainstream things. I can't be on iTunes or YouTube.
They don't still don't, won't let
They
you on.
won't. They won't. No, retroactively they won't. Well, I also I started to appeal it and say I started telling them I was a black quadriplegic thing, and they were like you, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Don't look at who I am. This is how I identify." They didn't take kindly to that. Whatever. Fuck 'em. Whatever. It's not the point. I was a smartass. That was my ego. But my point is it took not like a couple months. It really took. I mean, it's August 2025. It took about 4 years, maybe three and a half of just keep on going, keep doing the right thing, keep standing by it, and just slowly doors started to open, and patterns started to emerge, and I started to meet people, and I would get positive recommendations from doctors. But Tommy had me on way before any of these other big shows, and it slowly has reached up to this point where I'm not rolling in it, but the show pays my bills, which it wasn't when we last spoke, and I get to do this full time, and my soul is intact. And I think of your book, and then I think of reading it again after all this had happened, and I do get the feeling of it's the kaleidoscope. You're in jail, and you're like, what? I'm just gonna make the most of it. Like whatever, we're gonna stamp license plates, and then they come in and they go, actually, we think it's 104 million. You're like, what the Like
What is that? Yeah.
there is, and I personally believe it's God, but whatever you want to call it, karma, there does seem to be, no matter how complex this system is, no matter how big bad the players are, these guys can hire an ex-Mossad and dunst you in a second. It
Yep.
seems to be a kaleidoscope, and it starts to, and it's like if you stick with it, what's the thing about the kaleidoscope? What's the thing about the radio? Is if it's on a shitty thing, you have to keep moving.
Moving it.
And it would, if you stick with it, God, karma, universe, quantum physics, whatever you want to call it, it does seem to like the lock, the safe opens. And I
I think,
think
yeah.
that's what I, that's what 4 more years of maturity has, I've gotten. The first time I read it, I'm like, hell yeah, whores and sports cars. Now I read it and I'm like, oh, I identify with that a lot more. Now I haven't gotten my 104 million yet, but that's kind of my 2 cents on revisiting it. Not that you asked, but, and rant.
No, but it's interesting, and I think with time, everything becomes a bit more transparent and more. It makes more sense. And I think what I've done is the same. I've gone back and looked at a lot of things. For instance, the reason why they indicted me on a conspiracy charge was they looked at the old law. If I'm indicted, you don't get to collect an award. But they didn't read the new law, which my attorney wrote, which said even if you're convicted, as long as you did not plan and initiate, that's the statute. So I said to my attorney, how did I plan and initiate accounts that were open before I was born? And he just looks at me. He goes, or before I moved to Switzerland, or before I moved to UBS. I only worked at UBS from 2001 to 2006. That was a very short stint. But the very fact is, I couldn't have planned and initiated this. This is a massive machine, 19,000 accounts, $20 billion in bankable assets. It's not counting jets and yachts and this and that. So I agree with you. I think with time, a lot of things come out in the weeds here, and I've seen a lot as a result of what I've done. Like this attorney who cheated these guys in Greece. I'm like, what the is wrong with him? I felt like going over and punching him in the face. I said, "You're a real whore." Over your client? How do you your client for money? How much could they have given him? $1 million? And you feel good about that? Piece of shit.
But no, there is, I mean, even with like doing this podcast, there are like my rule is like I never do gotcha journalism because I think that shit's so gay, and I never edit anything in any way, for better or worse. It's just I put up the raw video,
Yeah.
and and there have been times where like I've heard doctors or generals say stuff off air, and I'm like I'm like that. I'm just like, man, that is salacious in my mind. And then there's like I can feel, I'm like, man, if I posted that, my show might finally break through. But then you go, okay, but what is the side effect of that? You're never getting that guest again. Any contact that guest has, they're saying fuck you. And anyone
No.
with two brain cells who sees my show, they might enjoy it as they consume it. They ever get reached out by Tommy's podcast one day, they're gonna go, no, 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 that's the guy that did okay, short term, yeah, sure. Short term, you can you can break down your walls and build a fire. But long term, it's like now you don't have walls. And the thing that the fire was keeping out, the cold, now it's here. So I think that really does apply to a lot. And I'm not saying it as like as a theory. I'm not saying this as like this is how the world should run. It's like shut up. No, this
No.
is my direct experience, and this is your direct experience of if you stay true north, doesn't mean it's easy. It's actually it's the exact opposite. You get raped in the face, but it does come back, and I think that's what I would. And the real you say okay podcasting you say that's not the real world. Okay, the realest of worlds, finance. That's the one thing that goes across all centuries, all languages, with Zoroastrianism or Islam or Judaism or ancient sun gods. You know what they all had? They all had currency. They all had some
Yep.
shekels. And
Yep.
you dealt directly in that. And the pattern that I'm talking about exists there. So if it can exist there, there's nowhere it can't exist. And I do believe that. I mean, if there's ever, I didn't think I was going to take the show in this way, but I mean, yeah, I mean, guys, read the book if you want something inspiring. And
Read
that's
the
what I would
book.
say there, Lucifer's Banker. Read the book, man. It's great. And again, the why I like it so much is because it doesn't start with you going like, and I was appalled. No, it's realistic.
I
Yeah,
was there. I was in it.
marble counters and the trains going by and steam coming out of the china. You're like, yeah, rolling in it. Like to me,
Right.
that's honest. And like so that's what I would say. So I don't know, something about Teddy Roosevelt and Kaleidoscope. So am I officially comparing you to Teddy Roosevelt? You're goddamn right I am. Um
Well, Teddy was a tough. What was he? The Rough Riders.
yeah, the Rough Riders. Yeah, no, Teddy was insane. He
The
was
guy was not. I
he
mean, can you imagine what's that group called with the Save the Fur and all this? I mean, the guy was shooting animals in Africa.
oh, he was insane.
He was the first, wasn't he the first president to leave the United
I
States?
think he
Or no?
was.
Yeah, I think he was the first president that left. There was
FDR was the
something.
first to fly, but I think Teddy was the first to leave.
Yeah, took a boat for a month and a half and went overseas. I mean, who does this? I mean, the Panama Canal. It says, yeah, we're doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
I mean, back then.
yeah, but that's yeah, no. It's in there the book I read about him, he talks about he's telling this story about how he's like hunting like bears or some shit. I mean, whatever
Right.
he's doing. And he's like in a tweed suit. He's like in the woods in like a three-piece suit.
Oh,
And he talks about how it's like gun jammed and he sees this bear run and it's in slow motion and he sees his teeth and it's like his eyes flash before his eyes. And then finally it fires and it goes right through his face. And you think you're gonna read this where he's like that was, horrifying. He's like, I had never felt more alive and thankful for a heartbeat. And I'm like, what the dude? Like, you're
come on.
nuts. But
Anyone else would have had to change their underwear, but
exactly. But no, I mean, but like Teddy, man, he do the right thing, and I do think the kaleidoscope works, dude. And I mean, I think your book is admirable for that. But yo, I'll stop talking your ear off because now I'm just screaming about Teddy Roosevelt and American
well,
Empire.
I think I read some portions of that book because I remember his overall mantra was just being the righteous guy.
Yeah,
There were judges that hated him and politicians in New York. Yeah, there was a great story there, and it was just he saw the sewage just rising up in the politics. And he said, "No, I'm not part of this, and I'm going to clean this shit up." I think he fired one of his best friends and put someone else in his position. And the problem is, and I firmly believe this, is that the presidents of recent, generally speaking, I mean, the whole Bush thing was just laughable. I mean, how is it that we, or the Kennedys, that we just keep getting the same people in there? How is this possible? That within a 50-year period, we've had what? Clinton twice, Bush's four times, no, three times, vice president, no, vice president twice for a senior, president once, and then a son twice, the Kennedys, JFK, and then and a host of others, and then the Clintons twice. I mean, and Hillary running twice and losing. Can you imagine? I mean, it's been dominated by five families pretty much. Obama had it twice. Now Trump's twice. Um, I don't know. I just think who really wants the job, Tom?
mm,
Only people who have been, except for Obama, who have been and Trump, who have been immersed in that shit for so long. You can't do anything else.
mm. I think, and I think this is kind of where it comes back to is you have to have guys that it transcends that.
Yeah.
Where they go. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt and I just read a book on Grover Cleveland. They would talk about their core thing would be like do right in the eyes of God. And there was no like, well, what about the Seventh Circuit? It was like shut the f up. Like
Right.
we're doing right. And they compared Grover Cleveland to quote an iron ship full of granite slabs, meaning the waves of politics did nothing. He just kept going. Teddy Roosevelt, his mom and his wife died in the same house on the same day, a couple hours apart. He had a
Wow.
daughter, and he was like, daughter needs a mom. Just went out, started dating again, found a wife, and just kept trucking.
Wow. Huh.
These are guys that it was not about like, well, how am I gonna, what's my legacy? What's my national life? These are guys that looked way beyond even the country, and they
Yeah.
just looked at it as, what is the right thing to do? And they might kill me, whatever. I think that's what you need. You do have to almost transcend it entirely. And if it works out and your name's up in lights and you get your on Mount Rushmore, yeah, that's cool. Sure, everybody has an ego. I think you need people who they look at it in such a bigger view of just do the right thing. And I think that's what's needed. And luckily, I would say as it's rotting through more and more, the chances of getting more and more people on the flip side to go, I'm just going to do the right thing because I just don't care. I think that's rising too. So I think that's what the case for optimism would be. Is it's what Mr. Rogers said. Whenever you see disaster, always look for the helpers because you will see them,
Yeah.
and that's what you have to look for. And so I do believe that it's something beyond the system. And I think unless you have that, it's just going to be the same thing, cycle in and cycle out. And
And you'll just continue along the same path and do the same thing. And I think that's exactly where the human psyche gets stuck in this rat trap where you get up in the morning, you go to work, you come back, you eat dinner, whatever, maybe get the kids ready for the next day and all that kind of thing. And there's just not enough time for yourself anymore. The commute's a bitch because you can't afford to live near work because it's too expensive. That's one of the factors of this wonderful growth. The second thing is maybe you don't like your job. Third thing is you're getting older and you probably can't get another job at that level, so you're getting shit scared. Hence why you and your wife both have to work and da 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 da. And it becomes. I mean, I go back to the States and I visit friends, and some of them, a few, haven't changed. Same job, same apartment, same this. I'm like, guys, since I've seen you, I've worked for four different banks. I've been this and that. I've traveled, whatever. Now, I'm not saying the world according to Brad is correct, but I'm just saying life is worth exploring and understanding these things so you can get a conceptual view of why maybe France is different than America, or why Italy is different than Ireland, or what have you. And I think that's really where you begin to assess things properly where you can. And the issues that we brought up here on taxation and hiding money and all this kind of thing as well, it goes to the core of every country. Are you over taxed or undertaxed? Do you feel as though that I'm getting services for my taxpayer money? I don't mind paying taxes if I get something. I pay taxes, I get shit. I don't use the schools, I don't use the roads, I don't use the hospitals, I don't use the police or fire. Now, I understand taxes are taxes, but the whole system should be reevaluated, in my opinion. Get rid of the majority of the IRS. Do a three-tier flat tax. 0 to 50 grand, 50 to 200, 200 and above. Have a nice day. No deductions, no nothing. Social Security, you made this, boom, pay it. How much money would come rolling in? How much money would then be left in the pockets of people? You've saved on all the bullshit accountants and lawyers. You've gotten rid of the IRS predominantly. They're dead in the water. And the taxpayer gets money. Hard money, disposable income, which they might buy a car, upgrade their
Mhm.
home, whatever, send their kids to school. Just give it back to the people. The whole idea of this tax is wrong because it's undermining everything we do. You want to do an audit, you want to do this, you want to file a form. Who the under even stand these IRS tax forms? You need a PhD in that shit, right? And it changes every year. Why do you keep changing? Because those accountants and lawyers want to make it complex, so you got to hire their dumbasses. And that's why you should go to a flat tax.
I feel like we've come full circle, and it's like, and I imagine this is this is the speech you give to some dude in a cafe, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll come bank with UBS." Like, I'm starting to see it like come out. I'm like, "Yeah, no, I can. This is yeah, no. It's like
He's convincing me
yeah,
that, right?
you
Yeah,
ever see
he's
those
a good
videos like
argument
Jordan
there.
Belfort talking, like like this year you'll see Instagram reels, and you're like, I see the wolf in him. I'm like, yeah, you're saying this all to me, and I'm like, I'm just completely negating the last hour. I'm like Teddy Roosevelt, like, yeah, I'm like, you tell me to hand you like a suitcase, like a Versace suitcase and full of gold kilos. I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. What am I getting from this goddamn tax system? Like,
I'll
yes,
put it in the safe deposit box and get my.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the thing, though, is like those are only appealing when the system at home is so. Um, but guys, if you can't tell by this conversation, dude, go get the book. It's a fun book. I can't fake. That's one thing I always tell people. I can't fake emotions during a show. I'm clearly all jacked up, and that's my best compliment to the show or to the book is go get
Thank you.
the book. Um,
And the website
and the
at
website.
lucifersbanker.com.
in the description. Um, yeah, dude, I'll send you this. It'll be up tomorrow, I think. Yeah, it'll be up tomorrow. I'll send it to you. It won't be edited at all. It'll just be nothing. I
Rough and
appreciate your
raw.
time, and dude, that was Rough Riders. That was fun, man. I appreciate it. You're a cool dude, and I appreciate you coming back on. And I also, yeah, just kind of exchanging ideas, and I think I appreciate the book more now because it's very
Thank you.
easy to say do the right thing versus when you go, oh, you could absolutely get your shot in the face. You add these are people that have this money, they can also hire people.
Yeah.
And I think that takes some balls, and I think you should be very proud of that.
Yeah, I covered my bases and made it work, and now it's bigger than life. The actual story is bigger than me, believe it or not. Even my attorneys, the FBI came and said, "Can you tell your fucking client it's not bad mouthing us?" He says he doesn't give a shit. You put him in jail. He was the only guy to go to jail. He helped you, and then you do this, and then he gets paid. You think he cares? So I really don't. I'll say what I want, and I'll do it wherever I want. And if you don't like it, off.
Amen.
Exactly. We got to
You're
get together for a beer, Tommy.
Yes, I would love. I'm in New England now. Last time I was in Maryland, I moved back up to New England, so I know these are your stomping grounds. So I'm
You're
in
up in
Portland,
up in
Maine.
Maine.
I'm in Portland, Maine. Yeah,
Portland. Oh, geez, what a
yeah.
great area. Love it up
It,
there.
it's beautiful. It's full of shitty communists, but whatever. None of them work. So
Yeah, whatever happened up there? Boy, that turned around, didn't
I
it?
don't know, man. That's a show for another time.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll I'll
But
I'll I'll send it to you. Let me know next time you're up this way, and we'll hang out. And that way, the CIA can kill us together. One missile, two targets. Our final act will be saving the taxpayer a couple dollars.
there you go.
All
All
right,
right,
brother.
Tommy. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much, guys. Please go to the description. Please go grab the book. Visit his website. Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. 72 servings per pail. 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So, if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com